Okay, on this fourth video, we're going to continue talking about phonetic processes that occur around consonant sounds. We talked about allophones, and we said that allophones are variations or variants of a phoneme that are decided upon depending on the context in which certain phonemes occur. We talked, for example, about the fact that if p, t, and k occur at the beginning of a stressed syllable, they're going to be aspirated. In other words, they're going to be plosive. If they occur in the middle, they have a neutral pronunciation, or if they occur in a syllable that is not stressed. And if they occur at the end of a syllable, they are unreleased. Okay? We also talked about other allophonic variants such as r and n, or the third person singular, or the simple past. Now we're going to talk about another allophonic variation process, and this is on page 32 of your anthology. Okay, here you have the term light and dark L. The which is normally described as a voiced alveolar lateral approximant, sometimes is produced at a different place of articulation. I know, you probably have never thought about this, but if I gave you the following examples: lip, lamp, little. See, whenever the is at the beginning of a word, normally it is produced in an alveolar position. In other words, it's clearly an alveolar O. The tip tongue is placed at the alveolar ridge to produce this O. But if I give you other words such as full or whole, okay, you see and you can feel very easily that the O is no longer alveolar. It's moving to a post-alveolar position, or even to a velar position. Okay, again, pay close attention to the O in the following words: full, whole. Do you see? The tongue is no longer placed at the alveolar ridge. This is a dark L. In other words, a light L is the O that occurs at the alveolar ridge, just like we normally have said. But a dark L is a L which is forced to shift its place of articulation when it occurs after sounds that are produced in the back of the mouth, such as back vowels or for example. Okay, so for example, a word such as girl, girl, a world, or curl, you clearly feel that the is not produced at the alveolar ridge. Okay, so this is another example of allophonic variation. Has two allophones. The regular is used to represent the when it occurs in an alveolar position. But a little line, wiggly line, which is like the line that we place above the N in Spanish for the letter ñ, okay, is placed in the middle of the O to say that this O is no longer alveolar, but that it is post-alveolar or even velar. Okay, so from now on, again, when you're given the task to transcribe or to provide symbols for certain consonant sounds, if I give you a word such as world, we will say that the is not just a that it is a dark represented with that little wiggly line across the Okay? Another concept which is introduced in the anthology on page 32 is consonant clusters. Now, this doesn't have to do with phonological processes, but with features that define consonants. In Spanish, we normally have syllables made up of one vowel or consonant vowel or vowel consonant. We don't have a lot of consonants put together or clustered together. A cluster is a group of something. So a consonant cluster is a group of two or more consonants appearing either at the beginning or at the end or even in the middle of a syllable. Not a word, a syllable. Okay? It says here that the most universal type of syllable structure across the world's languages is CV, consonant vowel. Although we could have a vowel be a syllable by itself, like I explained before when I was talking about syllabic structure. In English, we also have a lot of consonants, a lot of syllables that are CVC, consonant, vowel, consonant, such as seam, paid, bed, and so on. However, in English, there are certain words, such as the word, I think it was spray, that I used in the syllabic consonant to draw the syllabic structure, in which several consonants cluster together. And these are normally troublesome for non-native speakers, especially for Spanish speakers, because we do not have complex consonant clusters. Here, we see different types of consonant clusters. The ones that, in my opinion, are most challenging for Spanish speakers are S consonant clusters. So when a word starts with S followed by one or two consonants, what we do in Spanish is what? For example, in a word such as Spanish, what do we tend to do as native speakers of Spanish? And it's not just some of us, it's most of us. We say Spanish, right? What we do is we fix the syllabic structure, because in Spanish it is not legal, it's illegal to have a sp, st, sk, sl cluster. We have to break it up and we have to insert a vowel. So what we're doing really is fixing it to fit with the pattern of Spanish syllable structure. Okay, this is called a phonotactic constraint. Spanish has a phonotactic constraint that says that we are not allowed to have st, sp, sk, sl, and so on. So what we do is we fix it and we insert a vowel in front. Of course, this is incorrect, but we're doing it because we're transferring our phonotactic constraint from Spanish. So we need to be careful with these consonant clusters, because we really need to make sure that we do pronounce each consonant in these clusters. For example, we have sn as in snake, or sp as in speak, or sk as in sky. We also have pr, which is not a problem because we do have pr in Spanish. So we have pray, practice, okay? We also have ku as in quiet or quick, hu as in huge, pu as in pure, sl as in slow, slam, okay, su as in swift. Now, with initial clusters of 3 consonants, the first sound is always s. The second sound is a voiceless stop, either p, t, or k, and the third sound is one of the 4 approximants, either l, w, or y. So we have these consonants, which are the most challenging for Spanish speakers. Spl as in splash, splinter, str as in strange and strong, skew as in square, skew as in skew. And then we have some words which are just very special, because they could have up to 4 consonants at the beginning. For example, the word strengths. Actually, that one has, it has 3 consonants. Strengths, but it also has 3 consonants at the end. So we have str, and then we have the vowel e, and then we have nks. Normally, the good thing is that when we have th and s, we normally delete the th and we only pronounce the s. So this word would be pronounced strengths, strengths, strengths. Okay, but this is a difficult word for us because we're combining clusters of consonants not only at the beginning but also at the end. And notice how this word only has how many syllables? Strengths. Strengths. How do I know? Well, how many vowels do I have? Strengths. Just 1. In other words, this is a 1-syllable word. It's a monosyllabic word which has a very complex onset constituted by 3 consonant sounds and a very complex coda with 1, 2, 3, 4 consonants. Strengths. Okay. The same happens in words such as thanks, for example, which has a complex coda, or six, which also has a complex coda. So these are things that are important for you to pay attention to, and also practice saying words that have complex consonant clusters, either in the onset of the syllable or in the coda of the syllable. Okay, like I said, fortunately, there are some reductions to make things easier to pronounce, and this is done by native speakers, which is very good for non-native speakers because it helps us deal with these complex consonant clusters. For example, sk is normally reduced to st. For example, asked. You could say asked, but normally native speakers say asked, and the k disappears. Or sks. Instead of saying asks, native speakers normally say asks, and the k disappears. But you could say asks, that's also correct. Lists, so sts, normally the t disappears and you say lists, instead of lists, although they're both correct. Or kts, for example, facts. Normally you say facts and not facts. Okay, but if you do say that, that's absolutely correct. Or ps, as in scripts. Okay, normally you say scripts, not scripts. And the same happens with words such as fifths and sixths, in which you say fifths, or actually you say fifths, not fifths. Or sixths, you say six, just like the number 6, and not sixths, because that's very difficult. In fact, I have a hard time saying it. Okay, that's it for consonant clusters. On page 33, pages 33 and 34, you're asked to work on an exercise with minimal pairs. Remember, now we know very clearly what minimal pairs are. You need to come up with as many minimal pairs as you can with the following sets. Sh and ch, s and z, y and j, v and b, g and k, th and t, d and v, f and v, ch and j. Okay, this exercise you're going to be doing as homework. It's good practice for you, and you're welcome to send me it if you feel like you wanted me to check it. We already did the exercise on page 36 and also the one on page 37. So for now, we're going to be done working on the exercises from the anthology. For the following class, which is after Easter, I'm going to be working on reading all of these words of consonants in context as final practice. Okay, for now, this is all that you're going to be working on regarding the anthology. On my next and last video this morning, I am going to be reading the lists of words as practice provided in the following 3 handouts, which I advise you to pull up while I start the next video. The first one is practice with consonant sounds, and there's a list of words with challenging consonant sounds that I will be reading. Next, we have the minimal pair exercise. I'm going to be reading that out loud as well. You're welcome to start practicing when you watch the last video. And finally, you have an exercise with allophones, which we just talked about. Okay, so I will see you on the next and final video for this week. See you soon.